All right, welcome everyone. Let's give everyone a few minutes to sign on. And while we're waiting, we'd love to see where you're all calling in from. We have people join from all over the United States and around the world, so that's always fun to see. So I am sitting here in beautiful Jaffa, Israel. Zach, where are you located today?
I am also in Israel. I am in Tel Aviv.
Woo! So right up the street. We got some Boca, okay. Some Floridians, Arkansas. Great. So people are rolling right on in. Germany, Canada. I always am looking for my Hoosiers. You know, I was born and raised in Indianapolis. Chicago, close. New Jersey, awesome. So great. So people are starting to roll on in. So let's start things off with a little poll. So today's poll question is: how many man hours does it take to build a 50-person master media list for a new client? Now, when we say man hours, we don't mean specifically hours worked by men, of course. We mean the composite hours, the aggregate hours it takes to build a 50-person media list. It could be, two people working for 1 hour, that would be 2 hours. It could be one person working for 4 hours, that would be 4 hours. So let's see what people say. Zach, how long did it used to take you to make a 50-person master media list?
Yeah, so when I had my agency, I would say for a high quality list, you're talking about 4 to 5 minutes per person. So you're talking 200 to 250 minutes, which is like 3.5 to 4 hours.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, when I was at my PR, or the PR firm I was working at, we actually some people do things all by hand, some people do things all with spreadsheets. For me, it personally took, again, like just as you said, about 4 hours. You had to research the people, you had to find the people, insert the first name, insert the last name, and then search around the internet for their emails. So yeah, that was always the worst thing about PR, in my opinion.
Yeah, we would read through their articles, make sure they're relevant, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And like, I don't know about you, but when I was on different accounts, it would really just I don't know about it, it would make me frustrated knowing that I'm spending a half of a business day specifically just like finding people for a list when I had 3 or 4 other accounts that I needed to do work on. But again, media list is so important because it's who you're getting that pitch out to and that's who you're going to be who's going to be covering you. So that research is important, and it's also tedious and it's also time consuming, and it's just that perfect storm of PR frustration, which I'm sure you felt as well.
100%. Yeah,
Awesome.
media list building is probably the most time consuming part of PR from my experience and my agency experience.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that we're at a place that we could kind of stop the poll now. It's been up for a couple minutes. Anyone else want to answer? If you haven't answered, please let us know in the poll what your guys' experience is. So I'm actually going to end it in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Sorry if you didn't get a chance to answer, but here's what it is. And if we look at the results, people are saying between the majority, 55% are saying 1 to 3 hours, with 4 to 6 hours coming in really close behind. And that 1 to 3, I think that those people must either be superstars and super quick. But another thing that people do, and I'm sure that this is what brings down the time, is that the longer you're working in PR, you probably have 10 or 50 or 100 lists already, so you already know who to pick and choose from those lists, and that knocks down the time as well. All right, so we are going to continue on here a little bit. So first, again, welcome back. Welcome to the webinar. Just for all those who are just joining now, we're going to be talking about media list building that doesn't suck. Again, as Zach and I were speaking about before, media list building is just so awful. It's tedious, time consuming, takes time away from other things and other clients. We're going to be talking about not only about some ways to make your media list building even better, but also a new product that we at Propel have come out with, which we're really excited to share with you. It actually came out about 4 hours ago. So we're really excited to share with you everything about that. Now, just, a little bit about us, about Zach and I. So first of all, my name is Eitan. I'm the communications manager for Propel PRM. I use the platform every day and to get earned media coverage for the company. Before this, I worked at GK Public Relations, one of the premier tech firms in Israel, where I represented companies everywhere from seed stage to Fortune 100. Before this, I was also the senior editor at Ynet News, which is the English language edition of Israel's largest newspaper. Now, in addition, we have today, the honor to have Zach Cutler, the CEO, co-founder, and chairman of Propel.
Don't exaggerate. It's
fine. It's okay to have you, Zach. But seriously though, Zach is really an innovator and is on a mission to modernize the PR industry. For those of you who don't know, he's a former mid-sized PR agency owner. He was named by Forbes as one of the 20 entrepreneurs shaking up New York's tech scene and named one of the 100 most influential tech PR agency executives globally. A member of the Young Entrepreneur Council and Forbes Agency Council. He's been published in Wall Street Journal, Entrepreneur, Inc., and many more. Zach, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Eitan. Looking forward to it.
It's going to be a great webinar. And, just to recap of what we're going to be talking about, of course, we're going to do the introductions and talk to you guys a little bit about our background here at Propel. Then we're going to go into list building 101, talking about, how it's been done, how it's being done, and what it's going to look like a little bit in the future. We're also going to talk about some of the pain points and solutions to those pain points. And then getting into some pitching strategy at the media list level and how to, utilize your media list and to incorporate your media list into your overarching pitching strategy. And then finally, we're going to talk about, AI and media lists, their implications and some use cases. So, let's jump right in. So just one last thing, a little bit about us. We're the first PR tool built by PR people. Zach co-founded the company in 2019 after running his own agency for 9 years. And in his agency years, he was always on the lookout for better technology to manage all of his agency's campaigns, journalist relationships, team productivity, and business outcomes. Finding none that suited his team's needs, he decided to build the first CRM specifically for PR on the market. So he sold his agency and built Propel. Now we're all on a mission to democratize and make PR technology accessible to the masses. We support leading brands and agencies like Real Chemistry, Microsoft, and NPR by reimagining earned media. We've launched many first-of-a-kind features for PR workflow, insights, and analytics, and we have the industry's only native Gmail and Outlook email pitch plugins. So now, Zach, I'm going to turn it over to you for the big announcement. We're going to start it off with the big announcement, and then get in a little bit to, and then get a lot of it into media list building. But Zach, if you could please take the wheel.
Appreciate it. So great to have everyone here on the webinar. Really appreciate your time. And as Eitan mentioned, this is really a passion. I worked in PR my whole career before starting an agency. And once I started my agency, I saw all of the problems with workflow and inefficiency and lack of good technology. And so we built the first PRM, public relations management system, which we launched and started selling a little over 3 years ago. Now we have over 500 customers, and we're never complacent with our innovation. And I'm extremely excited to announce that we've been working very hard over the last several months on a groundbreaking new feature for the industry. You guys are the first to hear about it. This is our first public launch of the Amiga Media List Builder, which is our AI-powered media list builder. So we were talking earlier in the webinar about how time-consuming, how tedious, and how ineffective it can be to build your own media list and to do all of that manual research and to find all of those needles in a haystack. And so we have built amazing artificial intelligence, which is part of our Amiga tool, and it's part of our AMI model, which stands for Artificial Media Intelligence. And essentially what you're able to do is put in your pitch, put in your press release, or even just a simple description of your news. And we comb through 1 million journalists that we have in our database, and we present to you the top 50 or 75, you can select how many you want, journalists that match that pitch or press release or description. The amazing thing that we've uncovered is that after a lot of research of both the Media List Builder results as well as human results, we've actually achieved a human level quality of a media list that can be produced in literally 3 seconds. So after analyzing hundreds of contacts throughout media lists that have been developed manually, we've seen that on average, 40% of the contacts on a list are very relevant. After tons and tons and tons of testing and iterations of the list builder, we have actually achieved exactly the same percentage of very relevant contacts. It's 40%, and then we have an additional 27% that are somewhat relevant. So between the very relevant and the somewhat relevant, 67% or 2/3 of your list will be very to somewhat relevant. It's not going to be 100% relevant. There will be that third that you will want to, filter out and not include and not pitch. And that's how AI should be. We're not aiming to replace anyone. That's not even possible. Humans have talents and skills and certain level of understanding that machines just do not. And so the list builder is meant to get you about 70 to 80% of the way there. It's an amazing base. It's an amazing list that you can start off with. You'll probably want to add some additional people. You'll not want to pitch everyone on the list, but it's really a game changer. I wish that I had it at my agency, and we're really excited to show it to you. You're the first people in the world that will be seeing it. And we will do a demo towards the end of the webinar and really dive in and show you all of the capability.
Yeah, definitely. And it was, as the communications manager, I was really fortunate to be able to help do the QA testing for it. And, I just using it, first of all, I realized that it was coming up with either the same people that I was coming up with after my own research, or it was coming up with people that I didn't even think to add that were still hyper relevant. But what I really liked about it is the fact that it's, instead of taking, a couple of hours to make a over 100-person media list, specifically for the Media List Builder launch, I was able to do it in just including the filtering and just double checking the AI's work. It took me about an hour to make an over 100-person media list. And again, we'll hope, we will see in the coverage results how well it went, So let's move on a little bit from that, because we want to be able to have some time to show you how it works and actually talk about and get to the meat of the webinar today and talk about, media list building, talking about it, first of all, in the past and the present, and, different strategies that, we can use. So, I don't know what your guys' tech stack looks like, everyone listening here today and everyone who's going to be listening, later. But a lot of people are still using spreadsheets to make their media lists. They'll be taking, first name here, last name here, and then going through and searching the worldwide internet for somewhere to find these people's emails. And of course, that takes so long to do. And before that, I believe people had Rolodexes, people were handwriting these. And it just was something that would, of course, take forever. And if you don't have a tech stack, it's still taking you forever. And even with the other options that exist, it's still not instantaneous. It's still not something that's necessarily intuitive. And it does take a large amount of time. So, there's so many different pain points to that. And I know that my biggest pain point when I used to be creating these media lists by hand was just finding the emails. just finding out how do I get in contact with this person is just so difficult. And the way that I personally would always feel is, it would take me, let's say 3 or 4 hours to build a list. Well, the last probably 10 weren't that good, just because after so many hours of this tedious, mind-numbing work of just, deep in-depth research, I just wanted to be finished with it. And Zach, I was wondering, what were some of your pain points when you owned a firm, when you were building media lists?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say that the biggest pain point is finding relevant journalists that didn't just cover the news that I wanted to pitch them. So the easiest way to understand if someone would be relevant would be to Google news or look in a monitoring alert and see who recently wrote about this topic. But the problem is, if someone just wrote about it, they might not write about it again soon. So it's hard to really find those needles in the haystack of who's relevant that didn't just write about it. And it's just extremely manual. You have to read through their archive of articles, each journalist's archive. And I'm sure a lot of you here today feel that pain point, and there's really no way around it. And so that's why we're excited to build AI to help automate, a lot of that. Again, you're still going to want to curate the list, of course. You're going to want to add some people, take out some people, but to have a strong base to start from is just so exciting.
Right. And first of all, we'd love to hear some of your guys' pain points when it comes to media list building, but I wanted to also kind of bring it back to the journalist side. Like what happens when one of us gets on your list and we have nothing to do, like we have no relevance. It gets really frustrating for us. It really does fill up our inbox, like a journalist inbox as well. And in Israel, where I was both a journalist and where now I'm, working in PR, the English speaking community is very small. So I knew these PR people. And I'd come up to them like, hey man, like why am I on your, like, why are you sending me this pitch? You know that I'm not going to deal with this. And they said, listen, you are number like 200 on a list that took me 8.5 hours to make. I don't even remember putting you on there. I mean, listen, that's not a good tactic to use, to have so many that you don't remember who's on there and who's not. But it really does go to show just how much effort goes into making these and how tedious they truly are, how much energy it requires to make when you're doing everything manually. And when you're sending out 200 and you don't even remember who's on it, then what's the point? Why are you sending out so many? Just spraying and praying, hoping that someone's going to respond. But in reality, what you're doing is you're causing the journalist who's or the influencer, the person, the media in general, who's on the other side of that pitch to just completely either disregard you going forward, or at the worst case scenario, block you forever. And these are the things that we obviously don't want to have happen. And just so, that's why I'm really happy that I'm able to bring both my experience and as a journalist and my experience as a PR person here to be able to really, try to merge those two worlds together. And that's exactly what Propel is trying to do. So, let's talk about some of the reasons why it's so challenging. Why is building a media list so challenging, and what are some of the pain points? So what are some more of the pain points beyond just the ones that we've stated? What are some of the other things that, really made it difficult to build a media list? And so Zach, as an agency owner, I'd love to hear, what was your guys' process for building a list?
Yeah, so I mean, we would typically go to Google News, try to understand who's been writing about the topic that we want to pitch. And then we would take that name, go to our media database that we subscribe to, put in the name one by one, get the email, copy paste that, put it into the spreadsheet. Then once we've done that 100 times or more, which takes hours, then copy pasting the email address each time from the spreadsheet into our Gmail, and copy pasting the pitch, personalizing each pitch a bit. And the whole process, could take a whole day easily. to pitch and to research could even take 2 days. Propel changes that. And yeah, I mean, I think having all of the research capability and all of the workflow capability and now a list building capability in one place, it just would have saved us a tremendous amount of time.
Right. And so I kind of want to take this a step like a little bit higher level, because it's typically from what I've seen, and this might not be true everywhere, but it's, what I've seen is that you usually have the lower level people building the media lists, the people who might not have as much PR experience building out these lists. So, perhaps you aren't day to day dealing with the list. So what are some of the things, like, how would you interact with a media list as someone who's A, not necessarily building them, and B, who's, at the top of the company? What would be some of your actions that you did with a media list, if at all?
Well, I think the biggest thing was looking at the results of what happened from pitching those media lists, from what our account reps and account execs and account managers actually got in coverage from pitching those lists. And I got to tell you, sometimes the results were good, but a lot of times I remember conversations such as, okay, how did the launch announcement pitch go? And I remember very clearly one of my employees was like, crickets, no responses. And I was like, how many people did you pitch? And he's like, 150. And I'm like, well, what's the reason? I mean, not even any, no thank yous or anything. No, I don't know. Maybe it's because of Fashion Week going on in Paris this week. Or I remember sometimes just these random, almost, seemingly excuses were pulled. Maybe they weren't excuses, but to me, it felt like, wow, we really aren't getting results in certain campaigns, and we're not able to effectively track everything and understand why. So we wasted all this time building this list, pitching it out, and then sometimes the results weren't even good. And I think it's very connected to what you were saying, Eitan, about journalists getting so many pitches every day, hundreds, and they don't have time to reply because everyone's just spraying and praying. And so they're getting spammed, and then they're not able to reply or to cover the overwhelming majority of the stories. And then the PR professionals are getting, worse results because of it. So it's sort of this cycle.
Right. Now, you mentioned something, that, there's, when you're speaking to someone whose media list kind of fell flat, I think that a lot of, maybe not a lot, but I think that there are some agency owners who might wonder, how much oversight is needed for creating these lists. Like, at the end of the day, they are the most important thing because that's who you're sending to. And so if you're going to entrust perhaps someone newer to the team to be building this list out for the rest of the team, how much oversight should perhaps the account manager have? How much oversight do you think, the owner of the agency should have, if at all, or if there even should be oversight, period?
So I think that there definitely should be transparency. And I think that the best companies and the best performance, no matter what the industry is, it happens because there's not silos. There's data and there's communication that's flowing between people, between teams, between departments. And in the old way of doing PR, where you're in spreadsheets and you're using a bunch of different tools and everything's manual and there's all these data silos, that transparency and that clarity and that collaboration gets broken down because it's impossible. I mean, nobody can, hop around 100 spreadsheets in a day and keep, track of what's going on. That's why better technology was needed for this industry, because everything was just analog.
Right. No, for sure. And I mean, that's definitely something that I'm really happy with Propel. It takes me, I mean, even before the AI media list builder, it easily halved my time in making a media list. Now, but like going forward with this, with this, one of the things that I personally, at the very beginning of my PR career, struggled with was, how long should a media list be? And it was something that, I would hear different answers from different people. We could even be two different answers from two different like high level account managers. And so I kind of wanted to hear, your thoughts, Zach, on how long should a media list be, and does the type of pitch that you're doing influence the length of the media list itself?
100%, yeah. So it really should be as pinpointed and hyper specific as possible. So if you're pitching like a data story that you would be happy getting one or two really good articles, and and that's what that data story would, a good result would be, then I would suggest pitching somewhere between 10 to 25 journalists who are really relevant. Do your proper research, which now the list builder can do, can assist you with, and and send those out. You don't want to send hundreds of pitches. And when we show you guys the list builder later, you'll see that actually this methodology was built in exactly, and you can choose how long your list is. And, like you can choose 1 to 10, which would be for, very specific pitch where there's like a few people that are really relevant. You can choose 11 to 25, which is kind of along the lines of the example I gave, 26 to 50, or 51 to 75. And I don't think that a media list should ever be above 150 to 200 people, because then you're getting into that danger zone of spray and pray. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that answers your question. To sum up, I'd say, anywhere between a few to 150 is typically what I would go with.
Right. And, something that's interesting, and, maybe I haven't done enough self-reflection on this, but it's interesting that, you said to have a smaller media list for more of the thought leadership stuff versus a larger media list for the press release, for things like press releases. And I was wondering, why do we gravitate towards those types of lists for those different types of pitches?
I think that there is a logical reason to want to get published in a lot of places when you're announcing something that's significant, whether it's a company announcement, a product announcement, a personnel announcement, a milestone, whatever it might be. Like, these are some of the big moments in a company, and you want to get in all the trade magazines for your industry. You want to, in Propel's example, you want to be in obviously all the PR magazines and comms magazines and blogs, but you also want to be in some of the tech, you want to be in some of the business. And so for an announcement, you want to have these different types of media. And so the list ends up being larger. If we're doing more of a specific byline article or briefing, better than anyone, Eitan, that you want to, be specific and have less people on the list.
Right. And, going off of that, it's so easy to make a mediocre list, even easier to make a bad one. When you're getting into those kinds of numbers, when you're getting into like the 150s, and, getting that hyper-focused media list is very resource intensive and takes so much time. But, at the same time, if you are doing a 150 person or 100 person announcement media list, you're going to be sending not only to a lot more people, but you're also going to be as the rounds continue, you might be starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel as to who you're pitching. And I was wondering, how do you think that, media list building relates to the response rates that we've been seeing? We just came out with our latest barometer report about a month ago, and we saw that only 2.91% of journalists are responding in any way, shape, or form. It could be a yes, please, let's have an interview, to no, don't ever talk to me again. 2.91% response rate. And I was wondering, how do you think media list building with these different types of media lists relates to the response rates that we've been seeing?
It's directly correlated. I mean, the response rates are directly correlated to the quality of the list and whether you were pitching relevant people. And that's why I always say, over the last several weeks, as I've been talking with different people about the list builder and the launch of the Amiga list builder, I've been telling everyone that the reason it's such an exciting area to bring innovation to is that, number one, it's the most time-consuming part of PR. If you want to be a good PR professional and get good results, then finding the right targets is the most time-consuming. And number two, it is the thing that most determines success. If you're pitching the wrong people, you're never going to be successful. Even if you have the best pitch and the best story angle and you're persistent and you're following up, if it's the wrong targets, you've got nothing. So it's a really critical part of PR. And yeah.
Now, there are those that, I mean, I've heard that some people say, that there are certain clients that want to know how many people have been pitched. And so this means that they're expecting their PR people to reach out to hundreds and hundreds of people, every single thought leadership article or announcement. And so, how would you deal with clients who wanted to see the numbers game as opposed to that well-researched media list? Like, how do you explain to them your process, and how do you explain to them just the way that PR works in this regard specifically?
Yeah, I love that question. So my agency was different because I've always been a numbers guy and a data guy, and I tried really hard to make my agency data-driven. First of all, our pricing and all of that was performance-based, which is another story, but we were an unusual agency in a few ways. And the other way that we were unusual was that we had a point system. So every result that we got, we assigned a number of points, and the points were based on, is this a tier 1? Is it a tier 2, tier 3? Is it a mention? Is it a feature? How many times was the client mentioned? And so we ended up developing this system, and we would, add up how many points. And I always believed in transparency. So in my specific agency, we would report on that. But in general, I think that a lot of clients, they want more insight into, how much ROI is this bringing? What's the larger effect of all of this? And that's always been the hard thing to prove with PR. And by the way, that's another thing we offer in Propel. Not to keep plugging Propel, but I will anyway.
Fine. No, that's okay. No, but I think that's, really interesting. And I've heard of certain cases where, people, maybe because you spoke to them, but, they do have a tiered system where, depending on the tier of the publication, the company pays more. And I would wonder if, I'm sorry to belabor this point, but this is something that's that kind of popped in my head just from my personal experience and other people's experience. Sometimes the clients would say, you did too well, and now we have to pay you too much money. What was your response when that happened? Because I'm sure it happened.
Yeah, I remember actually a lot of times people were worried about that. And then when it did happen, I remember that they would try to, argue, well, this wasn't really a mention. It was like blah, blah, blah. But, these are just parts of dealing with business. And in the end, I am a real believer in making things data-driven, making things performance-driven. And I think that, the market is demanding that.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of that, being performance-driven, being data-driven, let's talk about strategy to get those performance numbers up and that data up. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is, pitching strategy from the very beginning from the ground up. Because there's so many different ways to do this. And if everyone's just like running like they're on a hamster wheel, not looking left, not looking right, it leads to, issues that I've seen. that we're going to be talking a little bit more about. But Zach, just like from your own experience, what were some of the pitching strategies that you use? For instance, who sends what pitches at which times? How do you deal with multiple people being on the same media list? Things like that.
Yeah, so I always tell this story. We had an office in New York and we had an office in Tel Aviv, and I remember the New York office was the bigger office, and we would have people shouting across the office in New York, literally like, "Hey, Sam, did you pitch a net from Forbes in the last week?" And then, Sam would start yelling, and then, an hour later, someone would shout from the conference room, did anybody pitch, so-and-so from Bloomberg recently? And it was just like so ridiculous that there wasn't a place where the team could go and see what the history was. And so double pitching was always a concern. Over pitching was also a concern. And the way we dealt with it was just very analog. Nowadays, there's much better technology to deal with that. But back in the day, it was, very analog.
Right. I mean, it's just like, I'm sure that you were just highlighting on Google spread on Google Sheets, just like I sent to this person on this day, and there's no way to really follow that. So, because like everyone's in their own little silos, everyone's doing their jobs. They're not looking left or right, as we said, running on that hamster wheel, and they might be double pitching. And sometimes I'm sure this happened with you, not you specifically, but I know that I was guilty of this at the very beginning of my PR career, that that you sent, someone was already pitched from a list and you hit the wrong button and you pitched them again. And there's nothing more embarrassing than having a journalist say to you, "Hey, I know you're new because 2 people from your firm have already pitched me this."
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing is, like, for a large brand that might have hundreds of people in their comms department across different offices around the world, or a large agency that might have thousands of people pitching from across different offices around the world or from home. There's like no way to, in the old way of doing PR, there's no way to really prevent that from happening, double pitching. And then from the journalist perspective, they don't know if they see that they got 3 pitches from XYZ firm, which is a huge firm with 3,000 employees. They don't know that one of them was in Chicago and one was in Hong Kong and one was in Paris. I mean, they just think this company's being extremely annoying. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, it's it's one of the biggest problems that I think when you're working on a team. Teamwork is great, but if you don't have that communication, and unless you have a technological solution, if you're not sitting right next to that person, watching them submit to or send the pitch off to those 3 people, let's say in TechCrunch, you're not going to know, and you're going to double pitch them and just annoy the journalist. But something else that I wanted to kind of branch off of from that was, when you're pitching, obviously the person who has the best relationship with a particular journalist is going to be the one to pitch them. Hopefully not 2 days later someone else will, because the person who has a good relationship doesn't highlight or whatever. But usually that's the person who pitches that particular journalist. And I've heard a bit of a disagreement here. Would you pitch the person with that you have the best relationship with at a particular outlet first, right when the pitching begins, or near the end, as like kind of like a Hail Mary, that Hail Mary is going to land in the hands of a great catcher?
Yeah, that's
Receiver,
a great question. I would personally pitch them at the beginning, because I think if you have a good relationship with someone, you want to be loyal, they've covered you in the past, you want to give them a good story early on. So it's kind of that give and take. But I could see different approaches on that, but that would be my approach.
Yeah, that's definitely my approach as well. I feel from what I've heard and what I remember, as you know, just being a senior editor is, you know, the earlier I could get a story in, like into me, so that I could start writing it and start fixing it up, and you know, having the opportunity to interview people, the better the story will come out. And I always appreciated it when the people who I did have that connection with really sent me stuff far in advance. Um, for me, whenever I saw just a plain press release just coming at me, you know, I would look at it, but I was less likely to look at it because I was less likely to put it up just because I didn't have the time to prepare a real story from it. I didn't want to straight copy paste the press release into our system. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So just one last question, and then we'll get on to the main event here, which is of course, our one of our first ever trials, our first ever public trial of the technology is mail merging. Now, there are a lot of people that's the only option they have is to mail merge versus individually sending pitches to go out to each journalist. When, in your opinion, Zach, would you instruct your employees to send out a mail merge versus trying to get them to individualize and send each pitch individually?
So one of my favorite features in Propel is generate drafts, because we have the mail merge option, but generate drafts allows you to essentially do a mail merge into your drafts folder and then personalize it. And that's exactly how my philosophy is. Like, the more you can personalize each pitch, the better. Sure, there will be occasional times where you'll want to send out a mail merge, you'll need to send out a mail merge, and either you don't have time to personalize it, or for whatever reason, you're just not going to personalize that pitch. But 9 out of 10 times, I prefer to do the generate drafts to really personalize, add a sentence or two that shows that you did your research. And by the way, if you guys haven't checked out our AI pitch writer, we launched that in March, and it actually personalizes every pitch for you. And it does that sentence or two that I and my agency used to always do. That was a rule. And it does that in an automated way by reading one of the recent articles of that journalist and then referencing one of the things they wrote in the article. And Sam has just dropped the link into the chat. If you guys want to check that out, you can try it for free if you're not a customer. So my approach is always to personalize. And I think that that's a very important thing to maintain, even with the development of AI, is that it's not going to become less personal. It's not going to become, you know, more machine-like. It's actually going to be the opposite. It's going to allow you the time savings and also some of the automation to make things more personal and more strategic and better than ever.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree with you on that. You know, I think when you're using like yet another mail merge or something like that, first of all, you know, you have to have, like, depending on where the time zone where the person you're pitching to is, you might have to have 3 or 4 different people throughout the course of the day send different mail merges. And it's so easy using an Excel spreadsheet to really you know, mess that up, to put the wrong person in the wrong date or something like that. And I personally never felt that the mail merge was very useful. I felt that it was a bit spammy. And you know, one of the things that I do use in Propel is and this is typically on the very minute that we're releasing a press release, like I did earlier today, is I will hit scheduled mail merge, and I'll go in to the drafts and I will change everything up, but the mail merge is already set. There doesn't need to be 6 people that are all hitting a button at different hours throughout the day or night. And speaking of that, let's you know, get into it. Let's talk a little bit about our Media List Builder. We're really excited to talk to you guys about it and show you guys how it works. It launched only a few hours ago. And you know, this is a really, really exciting time. So Zach, you want to talk a little bit more about the Media List Builder?
Yeah, so just to zoom out a little bit. So as many of you may know, 4 years ago, we created the term PRM, which stands for Public Relations Management. And we've been really honored to bring a lot of innovation to the industry in terms of workflow, CRM for PR, managing contacts, managing relationships, deep dive analytics into productivity, into ROI, to a level that has never been done before. And our vision was that within 10 years, every PR professional would be out of spreadsheets and using a PRM. And we've been just so happy to see the industry start to adopt it. Even some of our competitors building some PRM functionality, which makes us happy because we care about this industry. We come from the industry. We want to see it excel and innovate. And this is just the natural next step for PR. What we launched in March is Amiga, and we've coined our second term AMI, which is artificial media intelligence. And Amiga actually stands for Artificial Media Intelligence Generator and Assistant. And so much has been written about generative AI and the revolution going on, but I won't talk too much about that in broad strokes. But what I will say is that every 15 years, we're seeing a tech revolution. And in 93, we had the internet browser start to take off. In 2008, we had the smartphone start to explode in growth. And now today, we are at ground zero in the heart of the next major tech revolution, which is generative AI. And I am extremely excited because the PR and comms industry is going to be one of the industries that benefits the most out of any industry. And if you're asking why, it's for a simple reason. Generative AI and the amazing advancements that have happened in the last 6 months, it's all based around language. And that's why these models are called large language models. And it's all about the written word and the spoken word. And as all of us know, our industry is all about the written word and the spoken word. So for an industry that's literally about communicating via language, we are just set to be one of the most disrupted in a positive way industries in the world. And Propel is excited to be part of that. If we go to the next slide, Eitan, there's essentially 3 major pillars of Amiga. So we have the pitch and press release writer, which we've talked about a little bit. And again, it'll write a personalized pitch, which is the only tool on the market that will do that. It'll write a full press release, and it could be based on just 15 words that you put in. And the second major pillar of Amiga is the Media List Builder, which we're going to show you in a minute. And this is so exciting and allows you to build those relevant lists in seconds. And like we've said many times, you're going to curate it, you're going to take some people out, you're going to put some people in, but it's an extremely strong base to start off of. It'll save you hours on every media list build. And then the third major pillar is the pitch preference data. We've had 5 million pitches sent through our Gmail and our Outlook plugins over the last 3+ years. And we've, in an aggregated, anonymized way, analyzed what time is each individual journalist most engaging? What day of the week is each journalist most engaging? What topics from those real pitches is each journalist most engaging with? And we present these pitching preferences of when you should pitch a journalist, what time, what day, what topics in Propel, and it's the only thing like it in the industry. And all of this is possible because of our vast data set. We have 1 million journalists, we have close to 1 billion articles, and we have 5 million pitches. And we have used all of this data to train our AMI model, and it's the only thing like it. And AI is only as good as the data that you train it with. And so we're very happy that we have this vast data set and that we've been able to use it to train Amiga. Yeah, so with that said, I think the next thing is to go into the tool itself.
Yeah, let's give it a spin. So full disclosure, Zach, I did my own little test to see if it would work, and it did. But that does mean that I'm going to be using my incognito mode to go into it. So let's see what it says for me here.
we have a public landing page that Sam put in the chat that anyone, even if you're not a
Right.
customer, can use.
Right.
And you can generate your own pitch.
So this
And-
is, so let me stop sharing this screen and I'll just put it on a different screen actually. So give me one quick second, folks. Thank you so much for your guys' patience. All right, and here we are. So you can see that, you just copy paste your pitch here. And we're gonna do just that. I'm gonna copy and paste actually the Medialist Builder pitch that I used. Just a couple of, up until today, to pitch out journalists. Now let's see how it works. Generate my list, it's generating. All right, I'm gonna input all my information. And all right, so we can already see a little preview of what that list is going to look like. Now, just because of just different privacy issues, in this particular instance, we have put XXX next to the people's names. But this is, if we keep looking, we have Seth Aaronstein, talking. If I'm pitching the the AI Medialist Builder, Seth Aaronstein of PR News, great. Keach Hagee, Wall Street Journal reporter, marketing, technology, social media. She seems right up my alley. Here's an author at Adweek. Here's another author at Campaign US. These are all the associate editor and technology editor. These are all the people that not only were already on my media list for this particular pitching round, but this came in what, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and this is work that took me 2 hours to make, and I got it in just a matter of seconds. And let's see where it goes to my email. So everyone's going to get to check out my email right now, and here it is.
Oh, we still see the other screen, Eitan.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. Here, I'm just gonna re-share my screen. Got a little excited to show you guys there. All right, now I assume that you can see my Gmail.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So yeah, you could see that, we have very, very relevant people on this list. We have some medium relevant people on this list. And I'm sure that if, the more I look at it, the more I'm going to find a couple here and there people that aren't relevant at all. Again, the AI isn't perfect. But, we already have several very high ranking, or not high ranking people, but people that in my view, are very relevant and people that were on my first round of my media list that I made specifically for this. So it's pretty awesome to see that I can have an entire media list done in a couple of seconds, as opposed to spending with Propel a couple of hours, without Propel half of a workday, if not more, to do all of this.
And again, anybody can use the landing page that Eitan just used to get a free media list built. And then once you've done it once, it'll block you and you can set up a meeting with our team to learn more and dive in deeper. Eitan, could we do a quick journalist name search to show the folks how that works as well?
Yeah, definitely. So let me know, did you guys switch over to my Propel okay, awesome, beautiful. So I'm gonna just search for a journalist. As you can see, I was testing out the product with a few of the other pitches that I had that I'd written. You can see how many pitches do you want to put on your media list. And then on top of that, you could also see over here journalist name. So I'm going to type in journalist name. This is like almost, I wouldn't say autocorrect, but it's like, how in Pandora you could when you like music, it'll show you music that you like that's similar. So this is the same idea. See if it works. I'm going to type in Ingrid Lunden because why not? She's from, for those who don't know, she is a tech writer at TechCrunch and covers Europe and the Middle East. Let's see it. Let's wait for it to load. There she is. Let's click on her. I'm gonna hit generate.
So in this situation, let's say you know that a certain journalist is really relevant for your campaign and you want to know more journalists like that journalist. that's what this function does.
Right. And so here we have Natalie Sherman, who does business and tech for BBC. Rosalie Chan, who I'm sure if you guys have, if anyone here does tech PR, I'm sure that you've reached out to her before in your life. Benjamin Laker, that'd be interesting. I'm going to see, I would look in and see, okay, is this person truly relevant or are they not? And I mean, this is great. This is something that I would have wanted years ago. If if I could have had this would have saved me so much time. It gives me immediately, the people that I want to be pitching to, and I don't have to be searching like manually via, all the different outlets. They're, more or less all right here. This is, I mean, for me, this is really nice. And I hope that everyone who's able to do so will get a chance to play around with this as well.
And one thing I'll point out, Eitan, as well is if you see the thumbs up, thumbs down, everyone, this allows you to say if the journalist was relevant or not. It's optional, you don't have to, but it trains our model. And one of the things that we're most focused on, in addition to safety and keeping the model secure and respectful and safe for everyone and for the industry, the other thing that we're most committed to is continuously iterating and improving the model. And AI is, something that needs to constantly be trained and improved. And so we've built in the mechanism similar to how ChatGPT works and other AI, where, you can mark things and then it actually improves the model over time and it becomes better and better.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really excited to get to use this a lot more in the future. Well, now this is actually the time where we start asking, do you guys have any other questions? Any questions from the audience? We would love to take them. Anything having to do with media list building, strategizing, AI in tech, or just about ourselves. Anything you guys want? The floor is completely open. Something that I was thinking about is just how much more time I'm going to have to just ideate, to how this is going to open me up to be able to A/B test different pitches, A/B and even C test different pitches to see what's working and what's not. And that's something that I think that, especially given the fact that only 2.91% of journalists are even opening pitches, we're going to have to find out the best ways to really get those journalists' attention. Now, Lynn has asked, how much does this cost? So Zach, is this going to be rolled into PRM 1, 2, 3? How's the pricing structure looking?
Yeah, so Lynn, this is open to all of our customers for free until June 5th. And then if you'd like it beyond June 5th, there will be a cost to upgrade, and we'll be happy to set up a call with your CS rep or with one of our AEs. And we'll mark down that you are interested, and we'll follow up after the webinar and have someone speak with you in more detail about that.
Now, this is a really interesting question. Going back to, when clients would ask, how many people did you pitch? Have you ever had a client ask for a media list, and assuming that you didn't want them to see the list, what were some strategies that you used in order to kindly, gently, but forcefully tell them, no, you can't see it?
Man, I don't remember exactly, but it is an interesting question. I noticed Bob had a quick question here. I may have missed this, but what sources do you use to find your journalists? Is it done through your own lists of journalists or Muck Rack? Yeah, so we have a journalist database of 1 million journalists, and we have also an article database of almost 1 billion articles, and we use those sources as well as the millions of pitches in our system to essentially understand who the journalists are, what their topics are that they're interested in, and that's how the kind of the logic works.
Right. Awesome. Well, I mean, I think, that's basically, unfortunately, all the time that we have today. Zach, thank you so much for coming on the webinar. We really appreciate it. It's really fun and exciting to be able to launch, a tech that's this at least, for me, and I'm sure for everyone else who's going to get to use it, just going to be so impactful. And thank you all as well for coming and, watching with us as we watched to see that our system worked. And lo and behold, it did. There was no doubt in my mind, Zach. I'm sure there was no doubt in yours either. But this is really exciting, and I'm really excited to use it. Zach, do you have any last words?
Thank you very much, Eitan. And Grace, I see your comment. We'll reach out to you so that we can set up a call to give you some more info. And again, thank you everyone for joining. You were the first people to ever see this new functionality. And we'll keep you posted on future webinars. Thanks again, Eitan, and talk to everyone soon.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Everyone have a great evening, morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. All right. Bye, guys.
Take care.